Zimbabwe is a theater of unending social, political, and economic drama. Sadza eaters are making Hollywood actors look like rookies. I should organize an award ceremony with categories like Best Political Faction, Best Bootlicker, Best Celebrity Beggar, Best Noisemaker, Best Attention Seeker, Best Liar, Best Opposition Leader who is more ZANU-PF than ZANU-PF itself, Best Flip-Flopper, Best Looter, Best... Well, you get the point, don't you? You can add more categories in the comment section if you like. But the point is, there is more drama in Zimbabwe than on Netflix and DSTV combined. On one day, Nelson Chamisa blocks Hopo Chingono on Twitter, calling him a captured journalist. And then Hopo Chingono goes on a tirade of tweets, attacking, exposing and shaming Chamisa. Nelson Chamisa supporters then gang up on Hopo Chingono, telling him to leave Chamisa alone and form his own party if at all he feels like Chamisa is useless. And then we hear that the Minister of Information has a fake PhD, just like Papa. Well, allegedly. But at least Papa actually does have a PhD in the form of his church. And for those of you who don't know this guy, he is the new Jonathan Moyo, the Professor Jonathan Moyo of nowadays, except he is less skilled in the art of propaganda. And then we see CCC MPs joining in on the drama with this lady, Bridget Nyandoro, the MP of Southampton, accusing Joanna Mamombe of having secured an MP position using cryptocurrency. In particular, she alleges that Joanna Mamombe paid this cryptocurrency to Chamisa in his office. Of course, Mamombe rubbished these allegations. Bridget Nyandoro belongs to the Chavangu faction of the CCC, and Joanna Mamombe is aligned to the Timber faction, which by the way remains loyal to Nelson Chamisa, even though he's no longer part of that party. Drama after drama. Zimbabwe is a Netflix series. Actually, I call it Zimflix. Vamwe vanouya nechipower. Vamwe vane hunhu wechibawa. Vamwe vachibvisa hembe palive kunge shower hour. Ukuwo friendship yemabesti ichiita sawa. Umwewo achidzingwa pastage nemaken zvekutopodza hour. In Zimbabwe, the only thing that is more abundant than social media drama is the presidential Chakadero schemes. We have the presidential input scheme, presidential borehole drilling scheme, presidential rural goat person scheme, presidential cotton scheme, presidential housing scheme, presidential youth empowerment scheme, presidential horticulture scheme, presidential fisheries scheme, presidential rural poultry scheme, etc. Well, thank you ZANU-PF for all these schemes, but I wish you could give us more meaningful schemes like Presidential Sungai Gananda scheme, Presidential Pasinima fake degrees scheme, Presidential Musa bribe opposition scheme, Presidential Tanzania load shedding scheme, Presidential No to 2030 scheme, Presidential Justice for Tafumani Masaya scheme, Presidential Trikuda closure panyaya itaidza mara scheme, Presidential Trikuda compensation for victims zegukura hundi scheme, Presidential Isai Mapiriti Muspatara unaita tenda pinjisa katozita zvekukumbira mapainkillers scheme. Rest in peace. It may sound foolish and stupid, but it has a deeper meaning for anyone who cares to listen. Fellow Sazaitas, slay queens and bingers, socialites, papalites, vasinamalites, varikudya rice, never sinama rights. Welcome to the special report.
Ndauya kuzotenza kuti maparure mekedzo kumurye kwataomhera
You are watching Amai Tawomera, the mother of the new Glen View South MP, Tsitsi Tawomera, a 37-year-old woman who recently won the Glen View South by-election. She becomes the first ZANU-PF candidate to win a parliamentary seat in Glen View since 1995. She got 3,404 votes. Now, the candidates she was competing against had a combined total of 1,985 votes. Now, I found this number very interesting, significant, and symbolic. 1,985. You see, the year 1985 marked the last time ZANU-PF worried about an opposition party until the MDC showed up. The 1985 election was the last election which produced a significant opposition in parliament before the formation of the MDC. That means all elections which came after 1985 were a one-way traffic, just like the just ended Glen View South by-election, which was also a one-way traffic. The so-called opposition, with all its formations and factions, failed to field a single candidate in an opposition stronghold, in an area in which ZANU-PF has struggled to win a single seat for 25 years. The last time ZANU-PF had won a seat in Glen View was in 1995. So the opposition, or what's left of it, literally gave away the Glen View seat to ZANU-PF without even putting up a fight, or at the very least, pretending to. Only independents participated in the by-election. But of course, Maduku's party also participated, but then, hey, kuverenga party ya Maduku kwangofanana na kuverenga huku nemazayadzo. But at least Maduku's party didn't get zeros like Dagi Dagi. So does that mean that Maduku is bigger than Dagi Dagi politically? Well, Dagi Dagi will be saying, Komno goti Maduku is bigger than me say. Magandi meja kupi. Maduku Munzora, Maduku Munzora, Maduku Munzora, 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 ra. Simboti. Dagi Dagi. But Dagi Dagi paya pakuzoita maziro ka ndopo wakaratidza kuti tafi. Focus, man, focus. Sorry guys, sometimes I digress. We are talking about the recently held by-election in Glen View South. One thing is very clear. The opposition is dead. Deadest. But this is not the first death of the Zimbabwean opposition. It's actually the second death. It has died before and resurrected. So, if it has died before and resurrected, it means there is hope, right? The opposition first died in 1987 when ZAPU and ZANU united, or rather I should say, when ZAPU got swallowed. What was the purpose of the Unity Accord? Well, on the surface, it was to end Gukrawundi, but in reality, it was the pursuit of a one-party state. This is not an analysis. It's not my opinion. It's not a point of view. The Unity Accord says it itself in plain language. Point number 6 of the Unity Accord says the following: that ZANU-PF shall seek to establish a one-party state in Zimbabwe. And they almost pulled it off, by the way, in 1995. But I'll get to this later. And even though they never actually achieved the goal of actualizing a one-party state, they achieved the goal of destroying the opposition almost completely, rendering Zimbabwe a one-party state de facto. And just so you can fully understand the electoral implications of what happened in 1987 when ZAPU got swallowed, let's look at the composition of parliament before and after the Unity Accord. The opposition in 1980 had a combined total of 43 seats against the 57 of ZANU-PF. Of course, I'm aware that initially ZAPU was in government with ZANU-PF. However, Nkomo was soon chucked out of that government, and as a consequence, ZAPU quickly assumed the role of an opposition party. So, on the whole, the opposition had a combined total of 43 seats against the 57 of ZANU-PF. In 1985, the opposition's combined membership went down from 43 to 36 because ZAPU lost 5 seats and Mzorewa's party lost all the 3 seats that it had won in 1980. In this election, Ndabaningi Stole's party, ZANU-Ndonga, came into parliament for the first time. It won only 1 seat. So there you go. The opposition had a total membership of 43 MPs out of 100 in 1980 and 36 out of 100 in 1985. So now that we know the state of affairs before the Unity Accord, let's look at the state of affairs after the Unity Accord. The first election held after the Unity Accord was the 1990 general election. In that election, the opposition had a combined total of only 3 seats against 117 for ZANU-PF. And it's also worth noting that the 1990 general election was held without the white roll. White people no longer had 20 seats reserved for them. That reservation was abolished in 1987. Anyway, 1995 was the second election held after the Unity Accord. The opposition only managed 2 seats. ZANU-PF got 118 seats out of 120. The 2 seats were won by a party called ZANU-Ndonga of Ndabaningi Stole. That means ZANU-Ndonga single-handedly prevented Zimbabwe from becoming a one-party state in 1995. Thank you, Ndabaningi Stole. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Conquering shumba yerudzi rwechindau chibabababa chigunduru chakadya one party state chiba television high definition pamamonya ipapo. The opposition may have been dead, but mapfupa yakamuka and prevented ZANU-PF from turning Zimbabwe into a one party state. But the point was, before the Unity Accord, the opposition had 43% in 1980 and 36% in 1985. But ZANU-PF almost got 100% in the 2 elections that were held after the Unity Accord. The opposition parties which existed after the Unity Accord lacked the broad base and organizational strength to challenge ZANU-PF effectively. But that changed when Tsvangirai and the MDC showed up. The MDC ended the dominance of ZANU-PF and reduced it into becoming a rural party. Urbanites and the working class all rallied behind the MDC. Tsvangirai literally resurrected opposition politics and gave Zimbabweans hope. For the first time, a Zimbabwe without ZANU-PF was possible. More possible than it had ever been since independence. And yet, 25 years after the formation of the MDC, the opposition is once again dead. Dead, deader, deadest. The name MDC itself has actually been totally forgotten along with its current leader. As we speak, the so-called main opposition has at least 3 main factions, which are at loggerheads. Fighting to control a carcass. Zaitori fracas. Cause my top shatters. Naim shut up. What's painful is that this has been the state of affairs since the death of Tsvangirai in 2018. Not even the name change from the MDC to the CCC was enough to end the endless squabbles. Angori maswan kongonya kutaurisana kwevarambana. Vari kushandisirana chipower cause my relations avo ava sawa. Chero ukavati kulai down. Vangagokula seyeko down. Iwo ma streets achipisa. Let me end this video with this tweet from Advocate Fulcrum, Tabanimpof. He says, "What is happening in our body politic cannot be allowed to continue. It's been a season of authoritarian consolidation whilst the fragmented opposition continues to descend into contrived commonness. Too much effort is expended on petty squabbles and ego trips where personal interests overshadow the national interest, hindering progress. A fair amount of effort is thus expended by people trying to make abortive, unrewarding and unedifying points against those involved in the struggle. On their part, the struggle stalwarts have allowed lethargy to seep in. They have been played against each other, and like cowards, they have deserted their standards in the face of the searing heat of the battle. In all this, ZANU-PF has become the biggest beneficiary as our people continue to suffer, even as they face a future that continues to be more bleak by the day. Those are the words of Advocate Fulcrum. I like the part where he says, the opposition leaders have been played against each other, and like cowards, they have deserted their standards. Well, indeed they have. Because you see, when the MDC split for the first time in 2005, Washman Ncube was accused of being a ZANU-PF project, but he later came back to Tsvangirai before his death. Ncube himself accused Tsvangirai of being a dictator and power-hungry. So why did he come back to a power-hungry leader? And why did Tsvangirai take back a ZANU-PF project? When the MDC split for the second time in 2013, Tendai Biti was accused of being a ZANU-PF project, and Biti himself called Tsvangirai a power-hungry man, and yet they later worked together before Tsvangirai died. And when Tsvangirai then died, Thokozani Kupi was accused of being a ZANU-PF project too. She was called all sorts of names during a factional battle with Nelson Chamisa. Yet the two of them, Chamisa and Kupe, worked together during the 2023 election. And so, at what point did Kupe cease being a ZANU-PF project sent to destroy Chamisa? At what point did Washman Ncube and Tendai Biti cease being ZANU-PF spies sent to destroy Tsvangirai? Who amongst the opposition leaders is actually genuine and who is not? Who is captured and who is not? Who is a spy and who is not? Who is a sellout and who is not? Because they have one way or the other accused each other of being ZANU-PF projects. At the end of the day, the winner is ZANU-PF and the loser are the citizens. The opposition once again finds itself where it was in the 90s. Dead, deader, deadest. Dead, requiring resurrection. Well, in the year 2000, Tsvangirai showed up with the MDC and resurrected the opposition. Who is going to resurrect the opposition this time around? Well, whatever happens, I'll be here to marinate you with all the details without fear or favor, because on this platform, we say it as it is. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoy the content, please like and share.